The moment you do someone a favor they didn't earn, you've planted the seed of your own destruction. Think about it. How many times have you bent over backwards for someone, sacrificed your time, your resources, your energy only to watch them turn on you the moment you stopped giving? Or worse, they began to resent you for the very generosity you showed them. That resentment isn't an accident, it's human nature. And every time you ignore this reality, you're not being kind, you're being weak. You're destroying your power, your respect, and your position in the social hierarchy without even realizing it. Machiavelli understood this 5 centuries ago when he wrote The Prince. He saw what most people refuse to accept, that certain actions, no matter how noble they seem, are strategic suicide. In this video, I'll reveal the 5 things Machiavelli warned you must never do for anyone, and why each one silently erodes your dominance in every relationship you have. In 1513, Niccolò Machiavelli sat in exile, stripped of his political position, tortured by the very government he once served. He had witnessed firsthand how power operates, not through the fairy tale society teaches, but through the brutal mechanics of human nature. What emerged from that isolation was The Prince, a handbook so ruthlessly honest about power dynamics that it was banned by the Catholic Church and condemned for centuries. But here's what they didn't want you to know. Machiavelli wasn't advocating for cruelty. He was revealing a hidden operating system that governs all human relationships. While society programs you to believe that selflessness equals virtue and generosity builds loyalty, Machiavelli documented the opposite. He watched princes who gave too freely get overthrown. He saw generous leaders assassinated by the very people they helped. He understood that certain acts of giving don't create gratitude, they create contempt. Modern society has buried these truths under layers of moral programming. You're told to be nice, to help others, to give without expecting anything in return. And while you're following these rules, you're wondering why people disrespect you, why they take advantage of you, why the more you give, the less they value you. The uncomfortable reality is this: human beings are hierarchical creatures. We assess value constantly. We respect scarcity and despise abundance. When you make yourself too available, too generous, too accommodating, you're not demonstrating kindness. You're signaling low value. You're telling the world that your time, your resources, and your dignity are worth nothing. Machiavelli identified specific behaviors that accelerate this process. 5 actions that seem harmless, even noble on the surface, but function as social suicide beneath it. These aren't random observations. They're patterns he witnessed across decades of political warfare. Patterns that still govern every workplace, every relationship, every social interaction you navigate today. But there's something even darker about this that most people never grasp. It's not just that these 5 things damage your power, it's that they create a psychological dependency in you. They trap you in a pattern where you need to keep giving to maintain relationships, where you become addicted to the approval that comes from self-sacrifice. And that addiction? That's what truly destroys you. The masses will never understand this. They're too invested in the fantasy that the world rewards good people. They need to believe that sacrifice leads to appreciation, that kindness builds loyalty, that selflessness creates respect. They'll watch this video and feel uncomfortable. They'll reject these truths because accepting them would mean confronting how much power they've already surrendered. But you're still here, which means some part of you already knows that the rules you've been taught don't match the reality you've experienced. You've felt the sting of being taken for granted. You've watched people with less skill but more strategic awareness rise above you. You're ready to see the mechanism behind it. Let's begin with the first thing Machiavelli warned you must never do for anyone. Never defend yourself against accusations. This sounds insane at first. Your immediate instinct when someone accuses you of something, whether it's in a meeting, in a relationship, or in a public setting, is to explain yourself, to clarify, to justify, to prove them wrong. That instinct is destroying your power. Here's why. The moment you defend yourself, you've accepted their frame. You've agreed that they have the authority to judge you. You position yourself below them in the social hierarchy. Machiavelli observed that powerful leaders never explain themselves to subordinates. The moment a prince begins justifying his decisions to those below him, he signals that their approval matters, and the moment their approval matters, his power evaporates. This operates on a deep psychological level. Human beings assess dominance through frame control, who sets the terms of the interaction. When someone accuses you and you immediately respond with a defense, you're operating in their reality, you're dancing to their music. And everyone watching, because there are always others watching, registers this as submission. Let me give you a concrete example. In 2019, a CEO of a major tech company was accused in a public forum of making a decision that cost the company a lucrative contract. Every executive in the room turned to watch his response. His competitor, who made the accusation, had positioned himself as the judge. What did the CEO do? Nothing. He looked at his accuser for 3 seconds without expression. Then he turned to the board and continued discussing the next agenda item as if nothing had been said. The accuser tried to interrupt again. The CEO simply said, "We'll address unsubstantiated claims in private if you'd like to schedule time." Then moved on. What happened? The accuser looked weak, desperate, like he was trying to tear down someone above him. Within 2 months, that accuser was removed from his position. Not because the CEO orchestrated some revenge plot, but because by refusing to defend himself, the CEO demonstrated that the accusation didn't even register as a threat. He showed everyone in that room that he operated on a different level. This is frame control at its most powerful. When you don't defend yourself, you communicate several things simultaneously. First, that the accuser lacks the status to judge you. Second, that you're so secure in your position that their opinion is irrelevant. Third, that you won't waste energy on those beneath you in the hierarchy. But here's the nuance most people miss. This doesn't mean ignoring legitimate authority. If your boss asks you to explain a decision, that's not an accusation. That's a request for information from someone who has actual power over you. Machiavelli understood the difference between responding to power and reacting to manipulation. The key is recognizing when someone is trying to pull you into their frame versus when someone has legitimate authority to request information. The people who master this distinction become untouchable. They move through social spaces knowing that most attacks are just frame tests, attempts by others to establish dominance by making you react. And every time you refuse to defend yourself against these tests, you pass them. Every time you remain unmoved by accusations from those without real power over you, you cement your position above them. Now, most people stop here. They think frame control is the entire game, but that's why they fail. There's a second layer to this that Machiavelli understood, one that involves what you actively do versus what you refuse to do. And this next principle is where weak people and powerful people diverge completely. Never sacrifice your time to solve someone else's crisis. Listen carefully to this. Every time someone comes to you with an emergency that they created through their own incompetence or poor planning, and you drop everything to fix it for them, you're training them to see you as a tool, not as a leader, not as someone valuable, as a resource they can exploit whenever they need it. Machiavelli wrote extensively about how princes must maintain strategic distance from the problems of others. Not because they lack compassion, but because the moment you become someone's emergency responder, you lose the ability to command their respect. You become the person they call when they're desperate, not the person they seek to impress. The psychology here is darker than simple disrespect. When you consistently sacrifice your priorities to solve someone else's crisis, you create a psychological association in their mind. This person's time is less valuable than mine. This person's goals are less important than my emergencies. And once that association forms, it never reverses. You cannot give yourself freely and then suddenly demand respect. The pattern has been set. Let me show you how this plays out in modern corporate environments. There's a dynamic that happens in every office. Someone fails to plan properly. A deadline approaches. They panic. And they come to you, the competent one, the reliable one, to bail them out. You stay late. You put your projects on hold. You solve their problem. What happens next? They get the credit for meeting the deadline. You get more work because you've proven you'll absorb other people's failures. Within 6 months, you're drowning in everyone else's emergencies while they're getting promotions for delivering under pressure. This is the mechanism Machiavelli identified in political courts. The advisors who made themselves too available became servants. The ones who maintained scarcity, who made their time valuable by not giving it freely, became indispensable. The difference wasn't competence, it was strategic availability. Here's the brutal truth most people can't accept. When someone creates a crisis through their own poor planning and you solve it for them, you're not helping them, you're enabling their dysfunction and teaching them that incompetence has no consequences because you'll always be there to fix it. You become complicit in their failure to develop discipline. But there's an even deeper power dynamic at play. When you're always available to solve crises, you signal that you have nothing more important to do. Think about that. Powerful people are busy with their own strategic initiatives. They don't have spare time to absorb other people's failures. When you consistently have time to solve everyone else's emergencies, you're advertising that your own priorities aren't that important. I watched this destroy someone's career recently. A talented consultant made himself available 24/7 to clients, responded to every email within minutes, would jump on calls at midnight if someone needed him. He thought he was building loyalty. What he actually built was a client base that saw him as a commodity, available, desperate, low value. When it came time for contract renewals, they negotiated his rates down because they knew he couldn't afford to lose them. He trained them to see him as dependent. Compare that to another consultant I know who has a 48-hour response time policy, who schedules calls 2 weeks out, who says no to urgent requests unless the client pays a premium emergency rate. His clients respect him more, pay him more, value his insights more because he's positioned his time as scarce and valuable. If you're still watching, you're already ahead of 90% of people who clicked away because this makes them uncomfortable. They want to believe that being helpful creates loyalty, but you're starting to see the mechanism beneath the surface. The next principle is where it gets truly dangerous because it involves something most people consider sacred: your own reputation. Never try to change someone's opinion of you. This is where Machiavelli's understanding of human nature becomes almost cruel in its accuracy. He observed that once someone forms a negative opinion of you, whether justified or not, every action you take to change that opinion only reinforces it. The more you try to prove them wrong, the more convinced they become that they're right. Why? Because human beings don't form opinions rationally. We form them emotionally, then use logic to justify them afterward. When someone decides you're incompetent or weak or untrustworthy, they've built an entire psychological framework to support that belief, and that framework filters everything you do through a negative lens. If you're competent, they'll say you're showing off. If you're helpful, you're manipulating. If you succeed, you got lucky. Their ego is now invested in their assessment of you being correct. And every time you try to prove them wrong, you're actually threatening their ego, which makes them double down harder on their negative opinion. Machiavelli saw this dynamic destroy ambitious men who spent years trying to win over critics instead of focusing on allies. He wrote that a prince should never waste energy on those who have already decided against him. Instead, he should invest in those who respect him and demonstrate his value to neutral observers. The critics will either come around on their own when your success becomes undeniable, or they'll become irrelevant as your power grows. Let me contrast what weak people do versus what powerful people do in this situation. Weak people, someone spreads rumors about them at work. They spend weeks trying to have clearing the air conversations. They explain themselves. They provide evidence of their competence. They seek out the person and try to build a relationship. Every action screams, your opinion of me matters so much that I'm going to reorganize my life around changing it. Powerful people, someone spreads rumors about them at work. They ignore it completely and focus on delivering exceptional results for people who matter: their boss, their clients, their allies. They let their work speak. They don't acknowledge the critic's existence. Within months, the contrast becomes obvious. One person is producing results, the other is gossiping. The powerful person's status rises while the critic looks increasingly petty. This is the dark truth. Your attempts to change someone's opinion of you are actually evidence to them that their negative opinion has power over you. And nothing confirms someone's belief in their own importance more than watching you dance for their approval. But here's where you need to be careful. This doesn't mean being defensive or visibly bothered by criticism. That's just the opposite side of the same coin. True power is indifference, is continuing to execute your strategy as if the critic doesn't exist, not because you're pretending they don't matter, but because they genuinely don't. I've seen this play out in brutal ways. A colleague once spent 2 years trying to win over a senior manager who had decided based on one early interaction that she wasn't leadership material. She worked overtime on every project that manager supervised. She sent detailed updates. She asked for feedback constantly. She tried to schedule mentorship meetings. And what happened? The manager's opinion never changed. Because every action she took confirmed his initial assessment, she was insecure and seeking validation. The moment she stopped trying to change his mind and focused on delivering results for other executives, her career accelerated. Within a year, she was promoted past him. And suddenly, his opinion didn't matter at all because his opinion didn't have power anymore. That's the mechanism. Opinions only matter when you give them power. The moment you stop fighting them, they lose their gravity. But knowing these 3 principles isn't enough. You need to understand the fourth one, the one that involves resources and generosity, because this is where most people destroy themselves while thinking they're being strategic. Never give without establishing a power debt. This is the forbidden knowledge that separates manipulation from mastery. Machiavelli was explicit about this in The Prince. When you give to someone, you must ensure they understand they now owe you. Not in a transactional, petty way, but in a strategic way that maintains the power dynamic in your favor. Most people give freely and expect gratitude to naturally follow. But Machiavelli documented what actually happens. People resent their benefactors. They feel diminished by the debt. They begin to avoid you or find reasons to devalue what you gave them so they don't have to feel indebted. This is core to human psychology. Being in someone's debt creates discomfort. It's a constant reminder of your inferior position. So people naturally try to escape this feeling, either by convincing themselves the gift wasn't that valuable, or by finding something wrong with the giver, or by simply cutting off contact so they don't have to face the debt anymore. Powerful people understand this mechanism and use it strategically. When they give in a way that makes the debt impossible to forget or minimize. They don't just give resources, they give in moments of crisis when the value is undeniable. They don't just help quietly. They ensure witnesses see the exchange so the social debt is public. They don't give once and disappear. They give in layers that create ongoing obligation. Machiavelli advised that if you must give, make sure the recipient understands 3 things. First, that what you gave was valuable and could have gone to someone else. Second, that you chose them specifically. The gift was personal, not random. Third, that you'll remember what you gave, and so should they. This sounds manipulative, because it is. But power doesn't care about labels. The world is divided into people who understand these dynamics and use them strategically, and people who give themselves away and wonder why they're not respected. Look at how elite networks operate. When someone in power does you a favor, introduces you to a contact, gives you insider information, supports your initiative, they don't need to explicitly say, "You owe me." The debt is understood, and months or years later, when they call in that favor, you deliver, because everyone in those circles understands the game. Compare that to how most people give. They do favors for anyone who asks. They give advice for free. They make introductions without thinking strategically. They help people who offer nothing in return. And then they're confused when their generosity isn't reciprocated. The mechanism is simple. Free gifts create no obligation. Scarcity creates value. When your generosity is abundant and available to everyone, it becomes worthless. When it's strategic and rare, it becomes a form of currency that purchases loyalty. And here's what Machiavelli never explicitly wrote, but understood at a level that shaped all his advice. These 5 principles aren't separate tactics. They're a unified philosophy of power. They all serve one central purpose: maintaining your position in the social hierarchy by refusing to do the things that signal low status. Never defending yourself, never sacrificing your time, never trying to change opinions, never giving without establishing debt. These aren't random rules. They're a coherent system for preventing others from claiming power over you. Each one protects a different avenue through which people try to dominate you. Never reveal your full capabilities. This is the final and most devastating principle Machiavelli embedded throughout The Prince. The moment people see the full extent of what you can do, they stop fearing you. They calculate your limits, they plan around you. You become predictable, and predictably is the death of strategic advantage. Machiavelli wrote about this in terms of military strength. He advised princes never to fully deploy their forces in a way that enemies could accurately assess their total power. Always maintain reserves. Always keep something hidden, because the unknown is more terrifying than the known. This translates directly to modern power dynamics. When you solve every problem thrown at you, when you always have time for everyone, when you demonstrate every skill you possess, you're showing people your ceiling. They know exactly what you're capable of, which means they know exactly how much to demand from you and exactly what threats you pose to their own position. Think about the person at work who can do everything, who solves every technical problem, who works on weekends, who never says no. What happens to them? They get more work, not more power. They become the person everyone depends on, but no one fears. Their competence becomes expected, not respected. Now think about the person who carefully reveals capabilities only when strategically necessary, who occasionally solves an impossible problem, then returns to normal performance, who hints at skills but doesn't demonstrate them unless there's significant value in doing so. That person is dangerous. That person is unpredictable. People don't know their limits, so they're careful not to push too hard. This principle integrates with all the others. When you don't defend yourself, people don't know what you're thinking or planning. When you don't sacrifice your time, people don't know how much capacity you actually have. When you don't try to change opinions, people can't predict your reactions. When you give strategically, people don't know when the next gift might come or what it might cost them. Together, these 5 principles create a fortress around your power. They prevent the slow erosion that happens when you make yourself too available, too transparent, too accommodating. They maintain the mystery and distance that power requires. But here's the reality check most people need. This isn't about being cold or cruel. It's about understanding that the world operates on power dynamics whether you acknowledge them or not. Every interaction is a negotiation of status. Every relationship exists within a hierarchy. You can pretend these forces don't exist and wonder why people take advantage of you. Or you can understand the mechanism and operate strategically. The choice isn't between being good or being Machiavellian. The choice is between being conscious of power dynamics or being unconsciously controlled by them. Because I guarantee you, the people rising above you at work, the people who seem to command respect effortlessly, the people who never get taken advantage of, they understand these principles even if they've never read Machiavelli. They instinctively know not to over-explain themselves. They protect their time ruthlessly. They don't chase approval. They give strategically. They maintain mystery. And they do it all while everyone else follows the rules society teaches, rules designed to keep most people compliant and controllable. Now, some will say this is manipulation, that these tactics are unethical. But power doesn't care about labels. And the uncomfortable truth is that refusing to develop these skills doesn't make you more ethical. It just makes you more vulnerable to those who have developed them. The world is divided into players and pieces. Which one will you be? Let's synthesize how these 5 principles work together as a unified strategy. When you never defend yourself, you maintain frame control. When you protect your time, you establish scarcity and value. When you stop trying to change opinions, you preserve energy for strategic relationships. When you give with power debts, you build leverage. When you hide capabilities, you maintain unpredictability. Each principle protects a different vulnerability. Together, they create a system where you move through social and professional spaces untouchable. People can't manipulate you through accusations because you don't engage with their frame. They can't exploit your time because you've made it scarce. They can't dismiss you because you're not seeking their validation. They can't take your generosity for granted because it comes with weight. They can't calculate your limits because you never fully reveal them. This is how Machiavelli survived in the brutal political landscape of Renaissance Italy, not through military strength or wealth, but through understanding the invisible architecture of power. He saw that most people destroy themselves not through dramatic failures, but through small daily concessions. A favor here, a defense there, a revelation of capability, a desperate attempt to be liked. Death by 1,000 cuts of people-pleasing and approval-seeking. The system I've just shown you stops that bleeding. It establishes boundaries not through confrontation, but through strategic absence. You're not saying no aggressively, you're simply not saying yes automatically. You're not hiding your skills out of insecurity, you're maintaining strategic advantage. You're not being cold, you're being selectively warm in ways that build your position rather than diminish it. Now, some of you are thinking, this sounds exhausting. Do I have to calculate every interaction? Initially, yes. It requires conscious effort to break patterns you've been programmed with since childhood. But here's what happens. These behaviors become second nature. You stop instinctively explaining yourself. You naturally protect your time. You lose the compulsion to be liked by everyone. You give with intention. You reveal capabilities strategically. It stops being a performance and starts being who you are. And that's when you notice the shift. People treat you differently. They're more careful with you, more respectful. They seek your approval instead of you seeking theirs. The power dynamic has fundamentally reversed, not through aggression or manipulation, but through strategic withdrawal of the things that signaled low status. You now know what 99% of people will never understand, that power isn't seized through force. It's claimed through refusing to give it away. Here are the specific steps to implement these principles, starting today. Step 1. Immediate implementation. The next time someone attacks you or accuses you of something, pause for 3 seconds. Don't explain. Don't defend. Simply acknowledge you heard them with a neutral, I understand your perspective, or say nothing at all. Then redirect the conversation or exit. This will feel uncomfortable. That discomfort is your programming breaking. Push through it. Step 2. This week, identify one person who consistently creates emergencies and expects you to solve them. The next time they come to you with a crisis, respond with, I won't be able to help with that. I'm committed to other priorities. No explanation. No apology. No suggestion of who else might help. Watch what happens. Either they'll solve it themselves or find someone else to enable them. Either way, you're no longer the emergency responder. Step 3. This month, make a list of people whose negative opinion of you bothers you, people you've tried to win over, people whose approval you seek. Then consciously stop all efforts to change their minds. Stop the explanatory emails. Stop the attempts to demonstrate your value to them. Redirect that energy toward people who already respect you and neutral parties who might become allies. Watch how this shift changes your stress levels and your results. Step 4. Advanced practice. The next time you give someone something valuable, whether it's time, advice, a connection, or resources, frame it explicitly. Don't just help silently. Say something like, I'm making time for this because I see real potential in what you're building, or I don't do this often, but I think this introduction could be valuable for you. You're not demanding a favor. In return, you're establishing that what you gave was intentional and valuable. Step 5. Mastery level. Begin consciously withholding some of your capabilities. If you can solve a problem in 1 hour, take 3. If you have a skill that could help someone, don't volunteer it unless there's strategic value. Let people underestimate you. Let them be surprised. Predictability serves no one except those who want to control you. You've just absorbed knowledge that took Machiavelli decades of political warfare to understand and 5 centuries for scholars to decode. 5 principles that most people will watch and immediately forget because applying them requires confronting uncomfortable truths about human nature and their own behavior patterns. Most people will nod along, close this video, and continue explaining themselves to people who don't deserve explanations. Continue sacrificing their time for people who don't value it. Continue chasing approval from people whose opinions don't matter. Continue giving freely to people who take them for granted. Continue revealing everything about themselves to people who will use that information against them. That's why they stay powerless. That's why they're pieces on someone else's chessboard instead of players moving their own pieces. But you're still here, which means you're different. You're the person who sees the mechanism beneath the surface, who understands that the world rewards strategic awareness, not blind generosity. If this resonates with the part of you that's tired of being taken for granted, that's ready to stop performing for others' approval and start building real power, subscribe to this channel. Because this is just the beginning of understanding how power actually operates. The choice is yours. But remember, ignorance is not bliss, it's slavery, and you were not built to be a slave.